talking about, kids' ability to actually get any kind of a decent education. And I want to move from that to talking about higher education, because in addition to these cuts in K through 12, we had very serious cuts in the CUNY and SUNY budgets. And to speak about that, I'm going to call up Phil Smith, president of UUP.
Thank you, Karen. Ladies and gentlemen, fortunately, we live in a world today where everybody has an opportunity. People of color are found in the highest levels of business. We have a president who's an African American. We have recently a Hispanic member of the Supreme Court. These are all marvelous opportunities. And in business and other aspects of our lives, we find people of color and people from the minority community are being given more and more opportunities. What is the common feature here? And the common feature is education. We have to provide proper funding for education for our K through 12 students as well as our higher ed students. Today, coincidentally, we have about 150 UUPers and students here in the halls of the legislature advocating for proper funding. And I'd like to just introduce three of the folks who are here today. Rita Eugene is here, Yosef Andrew, they are students, and Karen Kotria is a former EOP student and now a faculty member. And they are from Farmingdale. And we have students from all across the state who are with us. In the past 24 months, higher education has been cut over $800 million. So we're talking here about the City University of New York, the State University of New York, and our respective community colleges. If the governor's budget cuts proposed go through, SUNY will be facing a total of $562 million cut in just the last 2 years. This is decimating to the university. And as Karen has pointed out, we are all very disappointed to read the Senate's budget resolution, which was published yesterday. In that resolution, there is a point where they are accepting the governor's cut to the State University of New York, and to add insult to injury, they're asking for an additional $15.4 million of cuts to, quote, university-wide programs, unquote. These are not specified. But in the past, EOC and EOP, our two premier opportunity programs, especially for people of color, have been cut to the bone. Just this past year, over 17,000 students were turned away. We can't allow that to be acceptable to anybody. We can't allow it to stand. We must speak up as citizens of the state of New York. Enough is enough. Our children, our futures belong to the children, and as adults, we are depending upon them to carry the torch onward and upward. So we need your support. The citizens have to band together and tell the legislature, enough is enough. This is a tough economic time, but we can't be taking away the dreams of the students and the people of our communities who are the most vulnerable. Thank you.
I just want to point out as well that within the report there are some specific examples and stories that relate to each of these issues. So on higher education, there's a story from Juan Liu from the Coalition for Asian American Children and Families talking about his experience at CUNY and how important it is for him to be able to graduate from CUNY and what these cuts could mean in terms of preventing that graduation from happening. And throughout the report there's some different examples where people talk specifically to how it affects them. I want to thank Assemblywoman Crystal Peoples for joining us today and hearing the results of our report. And now I want to talk for a moment about healthcare. The report also looks at the healthcare cuts, which are quite extensive and quite severe, nearly $1 billion worth of cuts to basic healthcare services, community healthcare clinics, our charity care pool, and a number of the essential things for healthcare for communities of color across the state. And I also want to flag on healthcare as well that in addition to the budget cuts, there was a small piece in the governor's budget that helped raise revenues, $70 million this year and $80 million last year, by regulating insurance company premiums. Right now, in the past, since 2000, we stopped regulating insurance company premiums. we've seen 17% a year average increases for individuals and small businesses. And the governor proposed that we allow the insurance department to review insurance company rate increases over 10% to see whether they're justified before those increases go into effect. That would save the state $70 million this year, $80 million next year, because we'd have fewer people losing insurance. It would obviously save consumers a massive amount of money. Yet the Senate chose to take that out of their budget resolution, which is really, it's surprising to see in the wake of national health care reform, our Senate siding with the insurance companies over consumers and small businesses. I want to move on now to, there's a number of cuts proposed in human services as well, legal services, nutrition advocacy, homelessness, immigrant programs, and a number of other, transportation, a number of other areas, all of which are outlined in the report. And I want to ask Mia Bell from Community Voices Heard to talk specifically about the jobs program and other issues that they're concerned with. Mia?
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for coming. My name is Mia Joy Bell. I'm an active leader and member here with CVH of East Harlem, New York. I'm going to be talking about subsidized jobs, programs like transitional jobs, healthcare jobs, green jobs, career pathways, nurse-family partnership that the governor wants to cut. New York State is eligible for $1.2 billion of emergency contingency fund stimulus money because of how many poor people live here. Last year, Community Voices Heard was able to fight for $45 million in stimulus money to be used to spread. Stimulus money to be used to spread transitional jobs all across the state. Why is Governor Patterson cutting these jobs that are truly a blessing to ourselves and our communities? Having the Transitional Jobs Program is proven to be an asset for low-income people of color and for people that are not working to be able to support their families with a real paycheck instead of not having anything to offer their families but more pressure. Many people of color in our organization have benefited from these jobs and have gotten experience while getting a paycheck. Transitional jobs have been working in New York City for the last 7 years. This program works for myself and for people like me all over this great state. The unemployment rate in the Bronx where I live is very high for people of color, and transitional jobs can help people get back to work. The governor also wants to cut the cash grant increase. Last year, for the first time in 20 years, people on cash assistance received an increase, which was paid for with the stimulus money. This money is so necessary because you cannot buy diapers, toothpaste, laundry detergent with food stamps. Please, legislators, put the full funding for subsidized jobs and the cash grant increase back into the budget. Low-income people of color across the state are counting on you. I am the face of poverty. Do not balance the budget on our backs. Thank you.
Thank you, Mia. And now we're going to hear from Noylin Abisimis Mendoza from the Coalition for Asian American Children and Families.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Noylin Abisimis Mendoza. I'm with the Coalition for Asian American Children and Families. I'm also part of the 12% and Growing Coalition, and we make up about 45 groups that serve the Asian American community in New York City. And I think I'm going to actually depart a little bit from the other speakers, and I want to talk about the impact of the budget cuts on community-based organizations and how vital we are to ensuring that communities stay stable, that they get the services that they need, and that they can continue to contribute to this economy and also to the recovery of our state. When you look at the example of the Asian American community, we make up about 1 million people in New York State. That's about 12% of the New York City population. But when you look at the number of government funding that actually is targeted to our community, it's 0.24%. So again, that's 0.24%. And I don't think that we're an exception in that. Many communities of color are also facing the same kind of issues where they don't receive a lot of government funding targeting their communities. Also in the philanthropic world, not many funding sources are actually targeting communities of color. And so when you think about budget cuts, it really disproportionately hurts communities of color. a lot of these services are, you know, being slated to be cut, like immigrant services, child care services, Mia had mentioned, workforce development programs. And at the same time, we're seeing shrinking budgets at community-based organizations that simply cannot continue to serve the communities that they're seeing, and we're seeing more and more people. So I asked the legislators to think about that. Really, we need to invest in our communities. We need to invest in making sure that they can continue to provide for their families, and that ultimately it is a good economic choice, because when you support them and you ensure that they're able to, that it'll really help us in the recovery